So it says we are live. I'm going to double check this on sound because there's always some kind of technical issue. It is the joys of going live. Tonight's guest, we've tried to get Dan on for quite some time. He's got some great stories from the stage. So I hope you guys have got lots of questions to engage with Dan as well. This guy has done it all, performed Vegas, high schools, colleges, corporate events around America. He's also a guest speaker at most of the hypnosis conferences. We've got our comments coming in as well. Natasha Stanley wins the first. Hello. Well done, Natasha. And Adam Richard Dealer, you came in second place as always. Yes, bless them. This guy has performed all over the States. High schools, colleges, Las Vegas. He has a fantastic TED Talk that's had over 1.8 million views the last time I looked. Smashing TikTok, an absolute expert in his field. So I'm going to play this graphic. Then on the other side, please welcome Dan Candell. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, he should appear. It'll be, I think it's that side. There he is.
Whoa. How did you do that?
Magic. It's all in the fingers.
Grant, good thing I wasn't in the shower. Like, you just beamed me in. I don't know how that happened. Like, where'd that come from?
I was hoping for the shower. In fact, one of the people in the comment section, Adam, who tunes in every week, he actually connected into my guest link one week and caught me getting changed just before a show.
You know, it's funny you say that because I have my phone that I clip in the shower while I'm taking a shower and play music. And people just randomly video chat me sometimes. And several times the water droplet has answered the phone while I was taking a shower. So I have more people than not who have seen me naked now. So,
well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Stage hypnosis. I put on your bio a stage hypnotist. You're more than just a stage hypnotist. In America, you guys are very fortunate enough to be hypnotists. In the UK, we do tend to be put into camps of stage hypnotist or hypnotherapist. Right. But in America, it's a lot more accepted, and you're smashing all those camps, really.
It's definitely a project.
Yeah, I can imagine. But first things first, what was your first experience? How were you first exposed to stage hypnosis?
So I actually started very young. When I was about 12 years old, my father took me on a camping trip, and I saw a hypnotist hypnotize a bunch of people in a stage show. And of course, I tried to volunteer, and the hypnotist didn't pick me. And I realized now that I was probably too young to participate. And then I saw another stage hypnotist a few weeks after that. Different stage hypnotist, different venue, but same exact show, word for word, same exact show. So I thought, wow, this is what stage hypnotists do. So I actually memorized what I saw in both of those shows, and I went and started practicing on my friends, and it worked. I'm like, who knew?
Yeah.
So then my parents found out. I was intrigued in it, and I had a little bit of a learning challenge going through school. It was difficult for me to comprehend information, remember info. So I actually learned self-hypnosis because my parents bought me a therapeutic book. It was Hypnosis for Beginners by, I believe it's William Hewitt. Mm-hmm. And in the back, there's a section that's hypnotize yourself to get better grades. So I practiced self-hypnosis, started doing that, then started hypnotizing other students who had similar types of learning challenges, and then started doing stage shows. And then I saw I read Orman McGill's book.
Yeah.
And then I saw that Jerry Valley and Tommy V and Orman McGill were teaching a course. So I took the course when I was 14. I was so young, my mom had to go with me in the course. And then my parents started driving me around to do shows when I was 13, 14, and 15 before I got my driver's license.
Wow.
So ever since then I started doing presentations, and I started doing weight loss seminars and smoking seminars when I was 16 years old. And in fact, there's newspaper articles that say local teen hypnotist hypnotizes scores of people to lose weight and stop smoking. So it took off from there.
Yeah. Sorry, a couple of questions. But Jason Simmons says he was waiting for it on YouTube, but it seems to have not connected to YouTube. The joys of multi-streaming. But at least you found us, Jason. Natasha Stanley says as well do you find it hard for people to take you seriously as a hypnotherapist if they've seen you perform a comedy show?
I find other hypnotists find it difficult to take me seriously. Not really with clients. In fact, I use my stage shows as a way to educate the masses of the power of hypnosis. And I do something at the end of all my shows called 2 minutes of transformation. And it's when I take all the volunteers, and I used to do this with the volunteers and the audience, but there's a reason. I'll explain why I don't use the audience anymore for this. But I give everybody this really powerful 2-minute hypnotic transformation where you just see the volunteers, they just instantly transform in front of your eyes at the end, where you give them confidence and confidence boosting suggestions. And many of these people, Grant, they just, and thank you, Natasha, for asking the question, they just start crying because they've never felt so good before.
Yeah.
And people will say, wow, if you can make someone feel that way in 2 minutes, what can you do with me if I come and work with you privately? So that's a really powerful shift. So I do find I've really only been hassled by other serious clinical hypnotists for doing stage hypnosis work, but that's about it.
I think there was a time when stage hypnosis did, to some extent, people relied on being shocking rather than being entertaining.
Right.
And it did kind of tar us all with a bad brush. But I think now a powerful presentation of hypnosis is one of the best adverts for hypnotherapy or anything like that is absolutely brilliant. Natasha Stanley says I could do with a bit of that, not just for being made to do stupid stuff.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too is I do see across different cultures and countries there are unique adjustments as to how people approach hypnosis in the UK versus how people approach hypnosis in the US. And I actually learned from a lot of people in the UK on how to do more instant and rapid inductions. And because there was really only, at the time I learned, there was really only 3 hypnotists doing instant and rapid inductions on stage at the time that I learned. And so I started doing research, and I realized that people in the UK were more using these really powerful inductions, and they played on like the shock and awe. And I'm like, I want to bring that to the US. So I started learning more of those techniques, and that's what actually transformed my stage career, where people say, Dan, we hire you because you're fast and you're funny.
Yeah.
And that's, I would send out surveys at the end of all my shows. Why'd you hire Dan? And it's because he's fast and funny.
Yeah. Roy Miller says, good evening.
Hey, Ron, how are you, my friend? I remember, Roy, I know a Ron Miller. I was going to say, I remember you, Ron, but you're Roy Miller. So hi, Roy. Nice to meet you.
Maybe a cousin.
Maybe distant relative.
So throughout the years, you performed in many different places. We all have those shows where we learn a lot. We have those shows that we keep with us for our kind of our dream boards, our dream shows that we kind of, before we go on stage, we visualize those shows. There's a couple. I mean, I know one of these stories. It's one of my favorite stories to talk about what can happen on stage, which is why I've been trying to get you on for so long. I always tell people, no matter how much you prepare, anything can happen on stage. Before we get to that one, tell about the first time you had a challenging show, and what were the takeaways? What did you learn from that?
So it's definitely audience management, and to be aware of everything that's happening at all times. So I'll tell you, this is a good lead in as to why I no longer do the 2 minutes of transformation with the entire audience. If you are good at doing hypnosis and stage hypnosis, you understand about conditioning. And when you can go back to a venue and perform many times, and the more people see you, the more conditioned they become. So there was a school, a high school that I'd done about 7 years in a row. And by this time, all I really had to do was just do this and drop my hand, and then everybody just go kerplunk and just becomes hypnotized. So I figured people were asking me because they knew I did the thing in the audience with with transforming people. So I know that at the end of the show, the audience is becoming conditioned. If you use proper language, the audience becomes conditioned to also become very easily hypnotized. And they've seen you fractionate and bring people up and out and up and out and up and out through the entire course of the show. So it builds almost an anticipation. And I used to say to the audience, okay, how would you like it if I not only transformed these people up here to be the best version of themselves, but I also did the same thing with you as well? And I had 700 people in the audience that night, and everyone's cheering. Yeah, yeah. So the way I would end the show is I would go through the 2 minutes of transformation. People would feel absolutely wonderful. Then I'd emerge everybody in the audience. I'd bring everybody out of hypnosis in the audience, and then I'd have everybody else on stage do the last skit, which would be a dance skit. And I'd have everybody usually belly dance or booty dance or something like that. And then I eliminate people one by one. And then you have like the one star of the show on stage. And then I would end it usually with having two guys on stage, like two unsuspecting guys, usually like the football captain and the captain of the theater club or something. And then I'd have them slow dance. And that's how I would end the show. And cheap bit, but it works. So
yeah, it's a funny skit. So you got
it is. It's classic, and people used to come at me and they used to say, "Well, Dan, you're making fun of guys liking guys, or you're making fun." I'm like, listen, I'm gay. Don't back off. Like, I'm not making fun of it. Like I am. Like don't. So I could do that. I have a free pass. No. So. So this one night, Grant, I hypnotized the audience, and I said, on my count of 5, everybody will open up your eyes in the audience and clear an alert, and you'll feel absolutely wonderful, and you'll enjoy the last routine that we do on stage with the volunteers. 1, coming up about 2, 3, 4, 5. And I just saw like the first couple of rows because it was very dark in the house. So I saw just the first couple of rows, and people are coming back and popping out of hypnosis. I'm like, okay, great. And then I go into the last routine, the dance routine. I said, when you hear this music, you're going to become the world's greatest booty dancers. Grant, I had not only the people on stage booty dancing, but I had about 500 people in the audience that stood up and started booty dancing. And I'm like, oh no. Yeah. So I was at that show for an hour and a half afterwards, like bringing people out, because they wanted to be the stars of the show, and they didn't get a chance to. So that was their chance. So that caused me to develop this awareness. That was probably one of the first things that went very, very wrong, very, very quickly. And but at the same time, the only person that knew something went wrong was me. Yeah, So it's just this pivotal moment where I was like, okay, Dan, you've got to really be aware of all your surroundings, and maybe you don't do that at the end of every show.
That hypnotist guy says, booty dancing, can we get a demonstration of what this is?
If you go on my OnlyFans, and is OnlyFans a thing in the UK? Do you guys know what that is?
It is. But I don't have one. I always joked when COVID happened that I was going to set one up. And I'll not say who it is. You'll know who it is. But then there is a hypnotist that has set up an OnlyFans.
I know exactly who it is.
And training, and I kind of thought, you're attracting the wrong audience.
Full disclosure, I do not have an OnlyFans. So if you look for one from me, I don't have one.
Hey, pivoting. That's what they say we got to do. Pivot. Right. Brilliant. Speaking of OnlyFans,
here we go.
Here we go. So, like anything can and does happen on stage, and you have a great story of an unexpected thing that happened during one of your shows.
An unexpected thing that just came about.
Came about, did it?
So. Oh gosh. All right. So here's what, and I don't think I've ever told this story like on a podcast before. You're the first. So, and you'll probably be the last. I don't know. So here's what happened. I was 19 years old. And keep in mind, I've been doing hypnosis shows since I was like 13, 14. I was 19. I got hired by a university in Boston, Massachusetts in the US. And they said, can you do a dirty show for our college students? And I'm like, sure, why not? Now, I didn't know what a dirty, and in fact, 19 years old, I was still a virgin. Like I had no, I was just so naive. And I'm like, I wonder what you do in a dirty show. So I looked up on YouTube, dirty shows, and there was a hypnotist in Vegas who's no longer performing. I don't even remember what his name was, but I saw some skits that he did. Then I saw like Anthony Cools come up, who's a really famous Vegas hypnotist, and I saw him do something called like the orgasm handshake. And I'm like, oh, I could totally do that. And like, again, like I'm 19, like I didn't friggin' know. And so I went through the show, and the show is great. And by the way, like there was a line wrapped around the campus. Hey,
sorry, can I just say, yeah, Kaz Wiley's here. The moment we start talking about sexual stuff with hypnosis, and Kaz appears as if by magic.
Kaz, brace yourself. Oh, and Kaz, you're gonna know what I mean when I say these two words, and you know what the two words are gonna be: jizz, water. I'll talk about that later. I'll talk about that later. So that's actually something that happened in hypnotherapy. So anyway, so I'm doing this show, and I'm going through the show, and there was a line wrapped around the campus. They sold out. It was a killer show. And the title of the show was An Orgasmic Experience You'll Be Glad You Came. And that was the title of the show. Well, so I get to the last skit. And by the way, the skits I was doing like, the typical skits, because at the time, I didn't really know a lot about developing my own skits or routines. Keep in mind, the first two hypnotists that I saw did the same exact show, word for word. So when I first learned, I thought every single hypnotist did the same bits and did the same thing. Now I know that's not true. But 19, I'm like, okay, Dan, just like make people moan and have them think that they're having sex with farm animals or something like that. So that's basically what I did. So now we get to the end of the show, and the suggestion is this: it's now time for the end of the show. It's time for the climax. In a moment, I'm going to come around to each one of you. I'm going to shake your hand. The instant I shake your hand, the moment our hands make contact, you are going to have the loudest, biggest, most earth-shattering, intense orgasm that you've ever had in your entire life. Now, keep in mind, these are college students. Most are like theater geeks who have not ever had sex. You know what? No, they're probably the freakiest ones. Yes, I know.
Those are quiet ones.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the ones you got to worry about. Yeah. So I'm going, and I said, when I shake your hand, you'll have the orgasm. And then when our hands are no longer touching, you suddenly remember everything you did in the entire show. It hit you like a ton of bricks. The look on your face will explain it all. So I start down at one end. I think I had like about 18 people on stage. I start down at one end, and I shake this girl's hand, and she just like starts just moaning like you'd never believe it before. And first thing that went through my mind is, oh my gosh, I can't believe this works. And then I went to a guy, and then I went to another girl, and because I think I'd alternate them like male, female, male, female. There's a guy at the end, and he was the last one. And I'm approaching him, noticing something's weird. I realize he's wearing basketball shorts, like those very loose basketball shorts, but no underoos underneath. So he doesn't have any underwear. And dude, he's like pitching a tent as we're going down the road, giving everybody else orgasms. Like you can tell he's waiting for his. So, right, life's a little pleasure. So, well, in this case, anyway. So. So I finally get to him, and I shake his hand, and as I'm shaking his hand, he actually starts to jizz. He started to climax, and it starts dripping down his leg, to which he grabbed my hand, he pulled me in, he wrapped his legs around my neck, and it smeared down my face. Keep in mind, I'm 19. This is my first dirty show. And to which the audience is dead. Dead. And I do this. I stop shaking his hand. I go, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan Candell, and thanks for coming.
Fantastic
That
line.
was the end of the show.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that's better than a standing ovation.
Yeah, I know. and I never got asked back to that university ever.
I wonder why.
So, I mean, they wrote a newspaper article about it. In fact, I think it's still out there that says, like, hypnotist puts college student out of commission for the night or something like that. Like, it's something. Oh my gosh. So that whole thing happened, and then so word started to get round that I started to do these shows for college campuses. So I had one college campus that I was doing that that sold out, and it was right down the road, and they got closed down due to fire codes. So a bunch of people who couldn't get into the show, like they were waiting outside for like hours to get into the show. So people started to riot, and they started to cause a lot of problems. So they had to call the police. So they go to all those people and they say, listen, he's doing another show at the next university down the road in 2 nights, go to that show. So night number 1, the newspaper headlines read, hypnotist causes riot at such and such university.
Brilliant.
Right. So the 2 nights later, the show I was doing, college students found out at that college that I was doing, that kids from the other school were coming. So they said, we're going to charge those kids admission, where for everybody else it was free. Someone found out and got really pissed off and called a bomb threat into the school. So my show got canceled. So night number 1, the newspaper headline was, hypnotist causes riot at such and such university. The 3rd night, hypnotist bombs. like what? Really? So those are some things that happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I say, it's the joys of what we do that anything can and does happen.
It really does.
Yeah. And just when you think you are safe and you've seen it all, something will come along and you do the best that you can to prepare and maintain safety and do all those things. But sometimes just because we're dealing with people, that's
and you know, Grant, I learned instead of saying you will have an orgasm, I started saying you will think you were having an orgasm. Think.
Yeah.
And one word.
Yeah, it's amazing the difference it can make. So tell me about your standout show, your best show, the one that you always kind of visualize, you go back to, or the one that is a goal show. Where's that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a show that I did for a county fair, and I always remember that this show will never leave my mind. I did a series of skits, like just the movie skits. You're watching a happy movie or a funny movie, a sad movie, a scary movie, a dirty movie. And I was doing this state fair, and there were probably about 3,000 people in the audience. And for the sad movie, I do this whole like montage, and I just sketch it out where you have no other option other than to cry. And I add some other stuff in it where I play the theme song from the Titanic. And that's what I was playing at the time. And then I'm like, Jack, Jack, Jack. And then I say, oh my gosh, he's out there in front of you, like hug him or something. And I usually go stand in front of like this big burly guy, and he ends up hugging me, and everyone thinks it's like, it's spontaneous, whatever. Yeah. So I'm setting up this routine. And all of a sudden, and I start playing or I had an assistant at the time. So my assistant starts playing the Titanic theme song. I didn't realize there was a professional singer. And he's not well known. He was just a professional singer, and that's what he did. I didn't realize he was on stage. And as I walked by him, I heard him singing a perfect Celine Dion impression. And I'm like, oh my God. So I gave him the microphone and I said, on my count of three, you'll open up your eyes. It's your concert, and one, blah, blah, blah. So this guy, he gets on, like, he literally gets on top of the stage monitors, and he like lays on the, and he was a big guy, big Hispanic guy, and he lays across the stage monitors, and it's just perfect the way this was happening. He like kicks off his shoes, and as he kicked off one of his shoes, one of the stage monitors fell off stage, but he still is singing. Now, keep in mind, he's singing, everyone's cheering him on in the audience. Meanwhile, there are still 20 people behind bawling their eyes out as if they're watching a sad movie because they have no idea what the hell is going on. So it was just like so much was going on at one time. But I remember this because this guy it was just such an offbeat thing. This guy had the best voice and he had this commentary going too, where he's like, Mariah Carey, she doesn't know what she's talking about. F that bitch. And this is for like a family show, and he's just spouting off at the mouth. And people came up to me afterwards, and I would sell DVDs. The DVDs of that show, I think I sold something like $800 of DVDs for that show. And where every other night I'd sell like $100 in DVDs. I'm like, oh my gosh, and that just, it made my night. And I always go back to that show as being one of the best ones, and not because of anything I did, but it's because of the volunteers.
Yeah. Like sometimes we do everything we can, but sometimes it's just the universe lines up and you get good volunteers, a great audience, everything just works. Yeah. It's brilliant, is that? Yeah.
And Grant, I see some stage hypnotists where they do make the show about them. And it's totally preference. And if that works for them, or if that works for the audience, then great. I tried to do that one time where I tried to kind of change my personality style around a little bit, or my stage persona. It just didn't work for me. And I used to have a totally different stage persona that was like a totally different guy. And in the past, I would say 5 or 6 years, I've really started to come into my own as I started to get like closer to 30. And I started to really bridge the gap between my real personality and my stage personality.
Yeah.
And now they're very similar. And there are still a lot of attributes where some people say like, oh, Dan Candell on stage, like that guy is he's kind of an asshole, and he would be like the life of the party. And that's not who I am. I'm really an introverted guy, and you'd never know it. But I'm really introverted in real life, in my personal life. I love to have fun, but I embrace that a little bit more now on stage. Yeah. So that way I feel more comfortable making the show more about the audience, the reactions of the volunteers. And like you said, we do the best we can to go through our show, but it's really audience reactions that make it.
Yeah. I mean, I've learned that myself. The further I get away from 30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's all we'll sound. That the further I get away from the 30. I mean, you Vegas. What's happening there now? Are shows starting to open up? Are things starting to happen again now? I saw somewhere that is it June when it'll be 100% capacity?
I think, May 1st shows are starting to open back up. Some shows are open now, but what it was hypnosis shows and magic shows were not allowed to have people on stage.
Yeah.
So they closed down all those shows. May 1st shows are starting to reopen. And I think as of June, they're probably going to start opening up more of the audience participation shows. Now, Mike DeShalit, my good friend Mike, and I know he's been on before, and he says hi, by the way. He's actually on a plane right now. He would be on watching, but he's on a plane right now to go do the Heartland Hypnosis Conference, and also do a couple of shows as well. But he had a show in Vegas, and I performed in Vegas many times, and I also do a lot of speaking. So I also do a lot of corporate speaking. And dude, I was in Vegas, like I almost bought a place in Vegas because I was there every other week. So 2 years before the pandemic, I was actually looking at condos in Vegas to buy.
Wow.
So that way I can spend half the year out there and do presentations, and then half the year here on the Northeast, on the East Coast. But yeah, so Vegas right now, it was booming, and there were some shows that were doing really well, some hypnosis shows that were doing really well, and there were some hypnosis shows where it's like hypno boot camp. And I did comedy. I had a comedy club up here where there are some nights in the comedy club we'd have 13 people, 12 people, and you'd still have to do a show. And some nights we'd sell out. And it's pretty cool because it's the same thing in Vegas. Everyone thinks, oh, Vegas is this glamorous thing when you get to go perform in Vegas. Not so much. There's definitely, and I'm not the one to talk about it because I don't have a reoccurring show in Vegas, but there are people that there's a dark side to performing in Vegas as well. So it's not all glam and glitter.
Yeah, and I can imagine a lot of the market is, like you said, about doing the corporates and the presentations to corporations and trade shows rather than headlining on the strip. Right.
And for the most part, I know a lot of people who make 10 times more, if you want to look at it in dollar amount, 10 times more money doing presentations and corporate shows or corporate hypnosis presentations in Vegas than they ever would headlining in Vegas. And again, every deal is different. Every one is different. Every show is different. It all depends on what you can negotiate with the casinos there. And like I said, I'm not the best person to talk about it because I don't have a show in Vegas, but many of my friends do, and I kind of know both sides of it.
Yeah. And you are presenting at Hypno Thoughts a stage hypnosis class this year?
Yes. Yeah. We're doing Stage Hypnosis 101. It's going to be Michael DeShalit, myself, and Jim Wand. And
that's a great lineup.
Yeah. We have a lot of different styles, which is cool. And so Michael DeShalit and I teamed up to do expert stage hypnosis training. We're offering it as Stage Hypnosis 101 for the pre-hypnosis conference course. The pre-conference at Hypno Thoughts Live, and it's a 3-day course. The reason why we're doing it as Hypnosis 101 and not branding it under Expert Stage Hypnosis is because Jim is joining us, and we are going to be offering some different things as well. And Jim is going to be talking a lot about doing virtual shows. Oh my gosh, sorry. Jim is going to be talking about doing a lot of virtual shows and stuff like that. And more of the agency side. And then, and like I said, we all have different skills that we bring to the table that really work for us.
Yeah. I always ask this as well. If you had to give yourself a tip, some advice to the younger Dan kind of making that transition into corporate shows, stage shows now, what would that advice be?
Be yourself. I tried so hard to be everybody else. And also don't worry about what anybody else thinks of you. I've had a lot of stuff go viral over the past couple of months, and I've been very fortunate where I have had a lot of things that just played out perfectly. And a lot of people know who I am, but it's difficult because there's a lot of opinions. And Grant, I would wake up every morning for like 6 weeks saying, and this was just like a couple of weeks ago, I wake up every morning looking at my phone saying, who hates me today? Yeah.
I mean, TikTok is, I've joined TikTok through doing these live streams. Somebody mentioned and said it's a good idea to do it. But I've seen your TikTok and it blew up.
It did.
Like millions and millions blew up.
Yeah.
And with that comes a lot of, there's a lot of uncensored comments and stuff that happens on TikTok.
Absolutely. And that's what happens. And I actually, I hired a marketing team at the beginning of the pandemic because I have a lot of personal development programs that I'd sell online or that I'd offer at my shows. And what happened was they were just sitting there throughout the pandemic and not making any money. So I hired a marketing team, and they came in and they said, okay, well, we'll start selling them. Damn, like those went viral too. And the thing is, though, people don't like to be advertised to. So I actually had to hire somebody specifically to go out and filter all my hate comments and to read all my hate mail and to issue like refunds if people want refunds, because it literally changed my business overnight, and I wasn't really prepared. And I went from being the hypnotist to the tech support to customer support to customer service, and it just was exhausting and stressful. And I almost said, like, dude, just like, let me go be a greeter at Walmart. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like a lot less pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Just have a look at the comments. Natasha says, are there any well-known hypnotists that haven't been on the show yet? There's a couple that are in line. It's always weird because because we've been going over a year now. And I contact some people, like yourself, I've been trying to get hold of for a while, but some people are like, why has it took you so long to contact me? I'm like, it's just because there's so many that have different perspectives. I've got a very quick clip of a bit of your show. Now, this is the interval in your show.
Yes.
Now, I love this part of a show because it puts the hypnosis in and amongst the people. It takes it off the stage and puts it right next to them. So it's only a short clip, and then we shall come back in 1 second.
Yes, I do. Go like it's
Anthony, tell me what you think of Dan Candell. What are you doing?
I had to pick up my tongue. I lost my tongue.
What do you think of Dan Candell?
Dan Candell, he's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah?
Don't like his Facebook page.
You don't like his Facebook page?
No.
What are you
Don't
picking
like
up?
Dan Candell's Facebook page. Don't like that's the Facebook page. Thank you.
My God. These poor people.
Bless him. But yes, that was an interval at a show. What was the show like?
Yeah, so so that was for a high school fundraiser, and I do an intermission or an interval in the middle of the show, and so that they can sell raffle tickets and so people can go buy baked goods and stuff, just to make an extra couple $100. So what I do is I have everybody on stage. I have the volunteers. I give them post-hypnotic suggestion. This particular post-hypnotic suggestion was, you're going to go around the audience and get people to like my Facebook page, because the more people you get, the better you feel, that, you know. I said, but every time you say the word Facebook, your tongue falls out of your mouth. Every time you tell them to try and like my Facebook page, and you'll start to actually, when people don't understand you, you're going to take their phone and like it for them. So I actually integrated a lot of those into my shows, different Facebook liking things, where that's how I got like thousands of people to like some of my Facebook pages.
I used to leave it as the one of the final week. All the suggestions I've given you are completely removed from your mind, completely removed from your body, apart from this one important suggestion. The very next time you go on social media, you'll have an overwhelming desire to leave Grant Saunders a 5-star review. And it's always fun because it makes the audience chuckle a bit, but it's a way of kind of driving home that, you know, we need those Facebook likes, you need those 5-star ratings. So yeah, absolutely.
And I added another layer onto it too, where I would say, you will not remember anything you did in the entire show until you go and like my Facebook page.
Brilliant.
And the moment you push that button, you'll instantly remember everything you did. And that just like that, it causes crowds of people to come over and, you know.
Yeah. Brilliant. I always ask this, if you were to recommend 2 hypnosis books, what would they be? Bennett, I can see 2 hypnosis books just over your shoulder there.
Yeah, those are mine. Those are like, those don't count. So the first one is Integrative Hypnosis by Melissa Tiers.
Yeah.
I am a huge Melissa Tiers fan.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that she changed my practice. Another one is Any Marketing Book by Russell Brunson. And I believe the one that I'm referring to is Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. You need to look at creating a community around creating a movement and being a real true influence and influencer. Yes. And I think there's a lot of hypnosis in marketing that a lot of people don't realize. And that book perfectly illustrates Expert Secrets. That book perfectly illustrates the psychological concepts and subtleties that we can integrate into our marketing that we would also integrate into our stage shows as well.
Yeah.
And
just on that point as well, John Steele says, blimey, I need to have some hypnotist to help me get some Facebook likes. Well, that's exactly what you were just saying then about how much hypnosis is in marketing. So yes.
Yeah. And everybody also, like, thank you all for watching it. And Grant, thank you so much for doing this. I've been seeing you do this throughout the pandemic. And from a technical perspective, dude, I love your background. Like, that is
yeah.
fantastic. I envy that so much. I love that.
Yeah. What was the space that was filled with all my speakers and lights from being on the road? When the pandemic happened, I started live streaming at my desk and then moved some space and then moved some more space and then made some space. And then I've actually got 3 different backdrops. I've got a Starlot one there and a different one there for all sorts. So it's good fun. Yeah. It would be remiss of me to not mention this, but I'm going to bring them up on screen as well. Anyway, The Hypnotic Connection, How to Influence and Persuade Anyone. That is your book. Yes. And also we have the Rapid Induction Formula as well. 2 great hypnosis books. So the link to those books will appear in the comment section as well. Click those links, buy those books. There we go. How was writing the first book?
Okay, so the first book was a cluster because here's what happened in a nutshell. I wrote the book. I hired an editor. I paid her, I think, like $450 to edit the book. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to put it on Amazon. I'm going to sell it myself. And so I
carried them around in a really big case.
Right. Yep. So I posted a link on, I put together like this whole marketing funnel. And I put it on Facebook, and then I just sent it to my email list. Overnight, I had like 1,000 orders.
Nice.
And yeah, but I had to pack them, ship them all myself. So then the next night they just kept coming in. Like, I didn't know how to stop it. So I shipped out the first 1,000 books, and then someone. Many someone started coming back saying, Dan, there's all these errors in your book. I accidentally published the unedited version of the book.
Oh, well, that's definitely something I would do.
Yeah. So the first 1,000 copies, Grant, are all unedited. So there's a part in the first edition of the book, because I transcribed it. So I just hooked up a microphone and transcribed it. And in there's somewhere in the book where it says, hey, Jeff, where it says something to the effect of, I was saying, use this suggestion to make it stick. But it was transcribed as suck a giant horse dick. Nice.
I would leave that in as like the foreword.
So someone who knows me reached out and said, I don't think, Dan, you really meant to say that. I'm like, say what? And she took a picture. I'm like, oh no.
That was a great moment. So just going back to the backdrop, someone mentioned this, and it's again kind of going about the editing, about having the right person to do the right job. The lighting and the backdrop and the design of the studios. The gentleman that spoke earlier, John Steele, is a phenomenal public brand photographer. Who actually came in and helped me set up the lights and the lighting to try and make me look as close to 30 as I possibly can be. So yeah, it's always important to have professionals do what they do so we can do what we do. Absolutely. Jason Simmons says that's amazing. Jeff Bennett says, I've got to read my copy again. Jeff Bennett is on the show next week as well, so that'll be really great to speak to Jeff. So yeah,
Jeff's a good friend as well. Hey Jeff, looking forward to hearing you on as well. I going back to having people do their job so we can do our job. About 2 years ago, I became the anxiety relief guy, and that just totally changed my practice and changed my career. And the great thing is, now I have a team of people working for me, and so that I can do what I do best. Yeah. And my business is changing so much, and it has changed in a very good way throughout the pandemic. Shows are starting to come back. I'm actually going to be partially retiring from doing so many stage shows. So instead of doing 100 shows a year, I'll probably do about 20 or 30. And just by choice, because I love doing that, but I also love doing the other client work, and I've been doing a lot of groups as well, and just doing online groups and presentations. So I really enjoy doing that too.
Yeah, I mean, your lives as well, and the stuff you do for the anxiety relief guy are, you know, pretty spot on, pretty spectacular. And like I say, the way your TikTok has blown up with that as well is pretty amazing.
And when you would contact, I felt so bad, Grant, because when you contacted me the first time to be on with you, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I have a 6-week waiting list. I can't handle it anymore.
Yeah, it's been amazing, Dan. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you again. And yes,
I do have one thing that I say, and I really do wish this for everyone, and that is be well, do good, and be true to who you are.
Yes, absolutely. Also, Natasha Stanley wants to know what's your TikTok handle.
It's just Anxiety Relief Guy. Anxiety Relief Guy.
Yes. Fantastic. Guys, thank you very much for me. Next week, we have Jeff Bennett. It's going to be a fantastic show. Please tune in for that. Tune in. Is it tune in? Is that the words you say? I'm showing my age again now.
Sure.
Log on and watch that next week. Thank you very much for me. Check out Dan's Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and his website. And if you can, check him out at Hypno Thoughts Live as well. Guys, thank you very much for me, and I'll see you next week.